The Canadian forces were involved in the 1950-1953 Korean War and its aftermath. 26,000 Canadians participated on the side of the United Nations, and Canada sent 8 destroyers. Canadian aircraft provided transport supply and logistics. 516 Canadians died, 312 of which were from combat. After the war, Canadian troops remained for 3 years as military observers. Bob, can you tell us, when you were in Korea, what was your service like?
I was with the Princess Patricia's Canadian Light Infantry 3rd Battalion, and I was the last of the Patricia's regiments to be there. And we, for us, it was a lot of patrols, but no fighting to speak of. It was in negotiations, the peace talks at the time. I was out on patrol maybe 5 times at the most. I was only there for about 7 months. I didn't do the full year because when the regiment went home, I went with them. But we did have some experiences with the booby traps and so forth. I lost a man 9 days before the ceasefire. A bomb hit the side of the trench and done him in very badly. And so, yeah, that's where I was.
So on patrol, what exactly did you guys do when you went on patrol?
It depended. Like a standing patrol, standing listening patrol, you see 3 men. And 3 men go out and they stay in the same spot and observe, but you're out in no man's land. And you stay there for the whole evening, all night long. Remember once it was raining, we were in a rice paddy sitting there. A rat jumped over 1 foot, over one knee and over the other knee and run back on the dike. And I'm sitting and you can't yell, you can't do nothing. That's one of my funny experiences, but I'll tell you it wasn't funny at the time.
I would imagine back then too there was a lot of bad things that people went through, but you had some good times too?
Well, after a certain amount of time they send you on what they call R&R, rest and relaxation, which entitles you to go to Japan for rest and relaxation. And yes, that's a good time because I went to a show there, as a matter of fact, in Tokyo was the Red Beret with Alan Ladd in it. I remember that very well. And I was with a young Japanese lady, and she said, you like? I was airborne myself, so I knew what it was about, yeah.
So this past Remembrance Day, we had some really bad, it was cold, windy, snowy weather. Yet many people came out to the Veterans Memorial Gardens for the service. This year you were not able to be with us on Moore Street, and you flew back to Korea for this year's Remembrance. Can you tell us who went with you and what was it like to return?
Well, first off, I tell you that sisters of the veterans that got killed in Korea were welcome to go too, at the expense of the Korean government. Patronage, they call it patronage, something like that. Anyways, there was maybe 5 women that their brothers had got killed over there, and they brought their daughters with them and so forth. So that was good to see that happen. And as far as being there and seeing things, they put on a big display for November the 11th. Even their airplanes went over like we do here, but it was 7 of them instead of 6. And they did a lot of wonderful things, and they had maybe 3,000 people at that Busan at the cemetery where the Canadians are all buried, and we all got to go and look at the plaques and that. And I think you've seen the what the grave sites look like, with all the manicured trees and everything is just all so well looked after. Yeah.
Now, you took your grandson with you?
My grandson, yeah.
Yeah, how did he...
17-year-old, he was amazed.
Yeah.
Of course, today, their buildings are all high-rises, and there's, in Seoul itself, there's... they build maybe 14 stories or better, and then they built 2 basements below that, 2 floors of basement below that. One basement I was in had a skating rink inside of it, on the 2nd floor.
Wow.
The other one had a bar and grill, and it had stainless steel and a copper boilers to make beer.
Oh, wow.
So they're pretty modern when it gets to that now. When I went through there in 1953, there wasn't a building in Seoul without a hole through it, because it had been attacked by the North twice and overrun Seoul, Korea, and were pushed back each time.
What were the people of that area back then? How were they receptive to you? Yeah, back in the war.
If you want to talk at 1953, they were begging for food. They were destitute because they had nothing. And they had already been pushed all the way back to Busan, which is on the tip of Korea, of South Korea. And it's right into the Pacific Ocean is the next move you'd do, yeah. But, you know, that was, I know we give our rations, we have trained to Seoul, and we give our rations away as we went along. Train would stop, they'd beg them, we'd give them food.
Yeah.
We had a box of rations. At the end, we didn't have nothing for ourselves to eat once we got there, but that's okay.
So the people that were younger back then, during that time, were there any, when you return now, were any there now that were able to talk to you guys or anything?
No, everybody talks to you there. So that's one thing. They some of them have good English, some of them do not have. We dealt mostly with the tour guide and 3 young university fellows that were helping with the bus loads and so forth, and a nurse. They had a nurse and a tour guide and 3 guys on every bus. We had 4 buses.
Wow.
So it was well represented. Now that 4 buses wasn't just for Canadians. They were from Cambodia, from South Africa, New Zealand. What's the other one? Next door to New Zealand.
Australia?
Australia, yeah. Australia, and the Americans were there too, but they weren't on our buses. They were another different group, but they were all together at the service. Yeah.
So while you went back this time, were you able to go to some of the areas that you remembered being there in 1953? Were you able to go to them again?
They won't allow you to.
Oh, they won't?
They had at the armistice place where they did all the talk about a ceasefire. It was called. It don't matter. But anyways, they had swine flu in the area, and they couldn't take us up there.
Oh.
And that's why we couldn't go. I've been up there though before, and the truce was declared.
Okay.
I was there before a few years back, 10 years ago.
What was that like to return
Well,
to that area?
They got guards on both sides of the buildings that the truce talks were down, and then they have on the north side they have a big looking building. I understand it's empty behind, but it looks big, impressive.
Oh.
And then they have the old where Americans were all heads were chopped off and everything when they tried to chop down a tree. North came, it was blocking the view, and the North came and took the axes away from them, and well, it was another almost reopened the war of that one.
Wow.
What year that was, I can't remember now, but I know that's what happened, and that everything went on alert and everything.
Totally.
Yeah, because of that incident.
Wow.
But that's how touchy it was.
So when you went back this time, were you able to meet up with anybody from the past that you hadn't seen since those days?
No.
No.
Nobody that the only guy that I knew in the bunch, and I only knew him because he lives in Windsor, Ontario, and that was Vince Courtney. That's the only guy that I knew, and his wife. They were there. He became an honorary citizen of Korea.
Really?
Yeah, because of his contributions to things in Korea that he has done. And he married a Korean girl, as a matter of fact. Lived there for 3 years.